Hi, my name is Nyaradzo Chauruva of My Money Project, and today I want to talk about what is it that holds us back from attaining financial freedom. If I can put them simply as chains that hold us back. And we do have a couple of those, and I want to just probably run through some of them. The first one, of course, is lack of financial education. If I can just be blunt and say financial illiteracy. For the longest time, I actually thought I was financially literate. Why? Because I'm an accountant by profession, and you know how it is that the whole world, in quotes, feels accountants know it all when it comes to finances. But there I was in a mess, even though I was a qualified accountant managing finances for organizations, and yet coming back to my own finances, my finances were in a mess. So that can actually be something that holds us back if we are not educated on how to handle financial resources. And that is my primary mission, actually, to help others so that they don't fall into the same ditch that I found myself in. So very important that we are all educated with our finances. Look out for the resources that help you. There are lots of books out there on financial management, financial literacy, personal finance, that is. So many books that are out there, online courses that are out there, and literature like this one where you just listen and become financially literate. The second thing, and I always talk about this one, is debt. Debt can actually hold us back when we're trying to pursue financial freedom. Debt, by nature, will then take some of the resources that were supposed to be going elsewhere, and they are now concentrated on having to pay back. You know how pleasant it is when you get that lump sum that is probably from the bank or whoever it is you'd have borrowed, and you get a lump sum. But 2 months, 3 months down the road, that becomes so painful, and before you know it, you may be struggling. So really, we need to again be educated better if you are to get into debt, on how best to manage debt. And of course, we spoke about that in other videos, so I'm not going to labor much on that point. Another one is living from paycheck to paycheck. Others say from payday to payday, or payday to payday living. Basically, this is when you get your paycheck or your salary, and there's nothing left over from the last salary. There's nothing left over from this salary to cover another month. So that is what we call living paycheck to paycheck. And that again is a chain or something that holds us back from attaining financial freedom. I have spoken about savings in the previous video, and having no savings is actually a chain or something that hinders us from attaining financial freedom. Because when you do not have savings, somehow you have very little wiggle room. You have no room for making errors. There's no room for emergencies. So having no savings, that is also not a very good space to be in, but it is something that hinders you from attaining financial freedom. There's also one thing I want to speak to, and that is around procrastination. You know how it is that sometimes you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start saving next month. Actually, somebody said that to me when I sent out one of my posts, and she says, Nyaradzo, for this month I want to enjoy my life, but starting from next month. I asked her to let me know the following month, but until now I haven't heard from her. You know yourself, so it's not very easy. Sometimes when you procrastinate, that's more like it may never happen. So again, that is another thing that hinders us from pursuing the financial freedom. So how then do you identify this? How do you know if you have these chains? Some are very simple. For example, you know yourself if you are living from payday to payday. That is a very simple indicator. Or maybe if you are in debt, that also is a very simple indicator. But I want to just mention some of the things I feel are not so evident but can be indicators that you are in financial chains, if I can put it across that way. Spending habits. You need to analyze your spending habits. Do you spend more than you earn? A very simple question. Do you spend more than you earn? And you know you spend more than you earn when every time you get to the penalties of the month that you start looking for alternative sources of income. And one of the most common ones, of course, is you have to borrow. You start borrowing from your friend. Guys, can you please give me some money for fuel? I'll see you at the end of the month. So are you living within your means? The next one is to review your savings. Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have money that is set aside for emergencies, as we've always said? And emergencies, as I've always said, are not a wedding. A wedding is not an emergency. So if you hear that your cousin is getting married next week, that's not an emergency for you to go and take money from your emergency fund. We do have some things that we can safely classify as emergencies, and one of them, of course, is when you lose your job. When you're out of employment, then that becomes an emergency, and of course you can reach out to your emergency fund. We also talk of when your vehicle breaks down. That is an emergency. When there's a funeral, that's number 3. When there's a funeral, that is an emergency. We also talk of a medical emergency. When you fall sick or someone falls sick, that is an emergency. And lastly, when something in the house goes wrong, it could be a burst pipe in the house, that becomes an emergency. So I've just mentioned 5, and anything outside of those 5 is not an emergency. So as you do an analysis of your life, of your finances, where do you find yourself? Do you think you have chains that are stopping you from attaining financial freedom?